All right, it says you are live. So I'm excited to be here. Welcome, everyone. So glad that you are here. This is the Church Law Podcast special live edition. We've never done this, but I'm super excited to have you here. This episode is called Still Faithful Why Shifting Isn't Failing. I'm excited to have my special guest with me, Dr. Monique Flemings. So, again, welcome to the Church Law Podcast. I'm your host, Eureka Cole, known as the Church Attorney. And I just want to thank you for tuning in wherever you are in the country or in the world. Today's conversation is one I believe is not just timely as we close out Clergy Appreciation Month, but it's deeply needed, especially for those in ministry, those in leadership, those Christians who are serving and feel that you're at a divine crossroads. Our topic, again, is still called Still Faithful Why Shifting Isn't Failing. If you're navigating a transition, facing uncertainty, or simply asking, God, what is next? Then this conversation is for you. So, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Fleming. Some of you may remember her from the Church Law and Leadership Summit that we held earlier this year in September. You all loved hearing from her, so I had to invite her to the podcast. She is a leadership consultant, a publisher, a speaker, an author, and CEO of Monique Flemings Enterprises. She brings years of leadership, ministry, healthcare, and entrepreneurship to the table. She's coached high-level women leaders, launched wellness-driven leadership programs, and published over 23 books. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Flemings.
Well, Eureka, thank you so very much for having me again. I am really excited about our conversation on today, and I am honored that you are taking the time to discuss something that is normally not really discussed very much. So kudos to you.
Well, and kudos to you because this is the lane that you live in. And I know that you and I have talked offline. We've known each other for a couple of years now. So I love that we're getting a chance to air this conversation for everyone else to join in. So let me just start with this question. What do you wish more people understood about the emotional and spiritual side of changes in ministry? Um, because I have found that contrary to our title, sometimes leaders believe that change means failure. So, what's your experience? Tell us a little bit about your backstory and why this is so relevant to you.
This is such a powerful question. I thank you for coming out the gate with this, especially right now, being in the month of, Clergy Appreciation Month. It is at the end of the quarter. Many people are looking ahead and preparing for the next year. And this could be a very exciting time for a pastor or leader, or it could be a very solemn time as well, just trying to see what's next. And sometimes we're measuring what happened, right now or previously on the scale of how we're going to move forward. And we may look at our record or the list that we planned for 2025, and maybe it didn't go the way that we planned, and that's perfectly okay. So getting back to the first part of your question, what are the emotional pieces? I don't think people really understand the emotional stress and the emotional pressure of being in a role that is so multifaceted and has so many demands, not only personally, emotionally, mentally, financially, on that leader. And so sometimes the demands in and of itself is more than people could really understand. You're trying to do your best to follow a mandate from God. You're doing your best to create and to bring into life what the Lord has given you, and love His people in the process as well. And that in and of itself can be challenging. But then to even throw in the caveat of God saying, I need you to do something different, and that is a change, and it looks different than what you have been doing. The body of Christ does not really give space for that. And so the only way we can cognitively relate to it is that it must be a failure.
Mm, That's so powerful. That's so powerful. And I think it's very interesting because most people were doing something before they came to the pastorate, right? They were doing something before their current role. And they probably would have said something like, God is calling me to leave this ministry and to go do this thing, right? So we're familiar with the need to hear God's voice and, frankly, the heart to follow it. Why do you think that sometimes people don't recognize the difference between a season ending and that sense that I think can be more automated to, like, let me just press through?
Well, we don't have the language for it. We don't have the language, and sometimes we don't have the pattern. I'll just use my own example. Being in ministry some years ago, being a pastor, I am still a physical therapist. Was a physical therapist, and moved into ministry. Felt the call to move into ministry. Not only just serving in ministry, but then actually planted and started a church. And so there's no language for when you feel God is moving you to do something different once you have started in ministry. And so if you start to look at your peers and have conversations, it's just not there. This is something you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. And what we have to understand is that it's a small portion of who you are. Yes, you are going to fulfill it and you're going to walk through God's promises for your life, but that is not the only thing that God has called you to do. And that is not the only thing. So when we talk about seasons, we don't understand and discern sometimes seasons ending, and you're right, seasons pushing through. And I would say to that, if people are in that place, because I hear this all the time, oh, my season ended, or just not understanding, we have to really take a step back and look at the fruit versus our feelings.
That's
Our
good.
feelings will say, "Oh, I'm done with this. It's over." But sometimes we're in a season where we're supposed to really push through to learn, to grow, to get stretched, to make new friends, new relationships. God is still doing some pruning in us.
Yeah.
But when is it time to say that the season has ended is when it no longer aligns with the call of God on your life and no longer aligns for God's purpose. That's hard to hear through the chaos and the clutter.
Yeah, that's so, so good. And I know that you said that we don't have the language for it, and I think that that's very true. And I know that when I had a season of transition, right, I'd always worked in a law firm environment. That was my dream. I grew up in the church. I love Jesus to the bone, and thank God that is a passion. That's my heart that's still there. God really planted that in me. But I also wanted to be an attorney. And I knew, I was like 10, 11 years old that this is what I wanted to do. And so I did it, right? And I graduated at 17 from high school and went straight to law school and went straight into, this clerkship and working and all that sort of thing. And there came a time where I was like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like there's a shift, and it was scary. I didn't know what it meant. It also, I'm married, I've got kids. I'm like, what does this all mean for the people around me? Right. I'm sure that's a part of what pastors and other leaders think. But over time, it was very clear to me that there was a shift to be had. And I established something for pastors because succession planning is a big part of what I'm called upon to do as well, to help churches and leaders in this way. And I called it Take the Next Call. And to me, it made sense because it was a calling. And I think sometimes the church culture doesn't necessarily support, it doesn't seem to be built to support leaders in that transition. So, how can church culture better support leaders in transition rather than what can sometimes feel shaming?
Yes, I think they should talk to you really and get on your schedule. But you're absolutely correct. It does feel like a walk of shame, and I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad we're doing this conversation today. This is going to help someone because you're absolutely correct. So the minute you say that God has called you to the next call or to the next thing, people want you to define it. And they will tell you that if you don't have clarity, then it's not God. And so what I go back to and what has been my blueprint for my life in this whole transition has been Abraham or Abram. God told him to go to a place that I will show you. He didn't know where he was going. He said, look, he called his wife and packed up everything. We know the story. And he said, I will show you. He didn't say go to this place. He said, I just need you to get out of your father's house and start moving. And that has been my blueprint for transition is we have to know how to go in the went because he just went. He didn't go. He didn't know where he was going. So just get in the wind. And we don't know where we're going, but I've had many times speaking with leaders, they'll say, well, if you don't know where you're going, then you need to stay put.
Hmm.
And that will place a level of fear in someone that knows, no, I just need to go. And so, because of my history with the Lord, it's like, no, I just need to go. And He will show me as I move. If I stay put, I cannot go any further. So, that really supports the fear that you're talking about because we
Yeah.
don't have the language and the clarity. And so, people will say, God is not leading you out there and He doesn't tell you where to go. Oh, yes, yes. Remember Abram?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
did that to Abram. So, yes.
Exactly. And I have to say also the examples in the word where it says they were healed as they went, right? Sometimes it is taking that next step
It is.
that gives clarity. I know that I would have rathered stayed and seen God like tell me everything that's going to happen and then I'll feel better to do it, right? That's I think that's the way we think as humans, but that
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be the way God works. You know, he's like
Yeah.
you take the next step and then I'll give you some instruction. And then you take the next step and then I'll give you some instruction. I think that's often how it works. They are healed. They were healed as they went. I think we also get better clarity as we go because what you are designed to do today may be different than what you were doing 10 years ago. And it may be different than what you'll be doing 10 years from now. Because, first of all, look at how technology has
Oh,
changed.
yeah.
I mean, there's no way we could have predicted that, now Amazon is going to be moving toward robots. Like when I went to school, like I wasn't thinking, oh, do you want to manage robots? Like, but
Yeah.
you just don't know what the future holds. So it's so much better to be able to really lean into hearing the voice of God and walking by faith and knowing that it probably will be uncomfortable and you may not be able to explain it to everyone around you, right? I had to get I say get my permission slip signed, right? I had to say to my husband, like, this is what I'm sensing and what I'm feeling. Are you
Mhm.
okay if I make this big shift, right? And thank God he was supportive. So I think you have to, again, in a ministry environment, maybe you're going to talk with your closest
Yeah.
constituents. You're going to speak with maybe the chair of your board or whoever you're aligned with to help you as you're walking through this change. But what I certainly encourage is if you feel the voice of God saying it's time to make the shift, know that you're going to be okay.
Well, honestly, succession planning and succession discussion should begin immediately.
Ooh, say
Not
more.
not when we feel the shift. When you come into the position, you should come into the position knowing that you are preparing for this particularly this part of the journey, and that there's going to be a passing of the baton. You're not staying there forever. You're there for this particular season, this particular time, this allotted time. And coming into the position, I believe succession conversations should be had in the beginning so there is less emotional. I'm not feeling like, oh my goodness, someone's taking something from me or all of the things. But if we do it in the beginning, we can prepare, in a way that everybody can embrace. And it sets the organization up and the body of Christ up for a livelihood that is just more rich. And that's the problem, is that we have leaders that are staying in positions well beyond their time. The organization suffers, the church suffers, people are emotional, and now we cannot make a good decision.
That is so powerful. I love that. Yes, plan for the succession at the beginning, not when you're in crisis or not when you're really feeling burnt out or not when you're feeling like, you're ready to pass the baton imminently. But I love the idea of having a plan. And I always say a plan in writing, right? Because sometimes
Yeah.
it's sort of like a budget, right? You talk to people, do you have a budget? They're like, yeah, I know, it's in my head. Nope, then you don't have one, right? It's the same with a succession plan. If you have ideas in your head, that is different from having something in writing that you can easily, again, write the vision, make it plain so that people can run with it, so that it can continue. So I love what you shared there. Now, let me go back to something that you said earlier. You were mentioning the fact that sometimes people, I'm going to use the term identity. Sometimes I think that leaders are really rooted in a certain identity, so it can be difficult for them to make a shift. Can you share more about what your experience is there? And I'll definitely chime in as well, what I've seen, that just this whole sense of, if I'm not the pastor, if I'm not the bishop, if I'm not the leader of this group, then who am I?
Yes, the identity of a leader, especially in the pastoral role, is something that definitely needs to be studied and more research done there. But you're absolutely correct. There is this thought process and a place of healing that really needs to take place for us to really understand that, yes, we are the pastor, we are the bishop, we are whatever, but at the end of the day, we are a son or daughter as well. And that God is allowing us to do this for just this amount of time. And if He chooses us to do something different, we need to be able to go with it. But pastors and leaders really struggle with identity. And I can say that, especially when it's in the church culture, and identity around who I am beyond my calling. So
Yeah,
that's why it's too hard to let go of the assignment, because this is my life.
yeah,
I put all this time into it. I put all this, and we can't even fathom that God has something else different for us, and He does. And so there is a separation that needs to occur for pastors. I believe every pastor should be in therapy. I think that should be a
mhm,
part of
that's
their
a good
health
one.
plan. I feel like if you are on the board and your pastor is not in therapy, you need to add it to their health package, just like you add the other benefits to their
So
health package.
good.
They need to have therapy. They need to be able to disrobe, because leaders, especially pastors, will not disrobe in front of the sheep. We are trained not to disrobe. So when do we let our hair down? When do we disrobe? When do we show our scars?
So
Sometimes
good.
we don't, and it shows up in the pulpit. It shows up in other areas. But I believe every pastor should be assigned when they sign the contract or however you do it, they should have some type of mental health support,
I love it.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah, because wellness, right? Our body, soul, and spirit. Spirit,
Exactly.
soul, and body, right? We want to be well in all the ways. So I see Carmen Wright. I see Martin Odom. Thank you so much for your thumbs up, for your hearts, for supporting. I really appreciate what you said there. Of this is a way that I really want churches, leadership, um, governing boards, right? The board of elders, right? I really want you to step up. And this is a call for you as well. Can you have a conversation with the top leadership and say, how can we support you? Right? What are your needs? What's your vision? Do you have a time in mind? Do you have a timeline? Is there something? Because sometimes I see situations where um, leaders are in, what's the standard retirement age in the US, right? I guess you can start getting Social Security at 62, and I think
Mhm.
67 is officially. So we see many leaders who are well beyond 60s, 70s, sometimes 80s.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've heard some of these sayings too. They say that, I'm not going to rot out, I'm going to die out, right? They're like, we're just going to be here forever until the Lord calls us home. And I respect that, because, if this is, I will never tell someone what God told them, right? And I'm going to trust that you know what God is saying to you. And, and also, I know that sometimes we can have various reasons that hold us back. Things like fear, things like maybe a challenge of like, what's next? We don't have a plan. We can't envision a life not doing the thing that we've always done. Sometimes it's financial as well, and no shade whatsoever there, because it requires a plan. And that's a part of, we'll take the next call. I'm like, I set this up. We make sure that you meet with someone who is not going to put your business on Front Street, right? Who's not going to be putting your business out there, but who can help you run the numbers. What does it look like? And it's no shame in saying to the church, hey, listen, we have not had a 403B, a retirement plan in place. Like, we need to get this in place, right? So there are some practical ways that we want to make sure that we can take care of the shepherd, so that there can be transition without unnecessary fear. Some of it is just fear because, when you're doing something new, sometimes that can just be a normal emotion. But we don't want to stay in a place, we don't be stuck. right? There's something different from being placed than being stuck.
You're absolutely correct. The transition doesn't have to be messy, and it doesn't have to be bloody as well.
Mm,
And the sooner we have those conversations early on, the pastor and can prepare themselves as well. Oftentimes these conversations are had, like you said, when someone is sick or something is wrong. And so it's not at the best time, even in the organization, to have those conversations, but having those conversations early on, planning and preparing, and then being able to support that pastor for what is next. Like you said, taking the next call, understanding that shifting is not failing. It is not failing.
yeah. And so it's not failing. What is it? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot
Yeah.
there. So we know it's not failing. What is it?
It is the continuation of the journey that God has placed for you, for your
Yes.
life. It's a part of your destiny. It is when we understand that the local church is one small entity in the kingdom of God, then we understand that, He doesn't necessarily want us to always stay in grammar school. And I'm not saying that the church is grammar school, but I'm just saying, would you stay in grammar school at 21 or at 25? Would you stay, in grammar school at 30? No, we would have some concerns if you were still there. But yet we do that. We feel like, oh, the local church is here. This is the only entity. There are so many ways that we can serve God, and our voices are needed and necessary in these places, beyond just the local church. And I
Yeah.
think that's the first thing, is to understand that local church is a part of the kingdom. It is not the kingdom in its entirety.
I love it. So, what would you say, Dr. Flemings, as someone who has gone through a transition yourself, as someone who was in the pastorate
Yeah.
and now serves in a different capacity? How is it different for you, number one? And what would you say to that person who feels like, I feel like I want to transition?
Yeah, I would say I absolutely loved pastoring. I think pastoring is so honorable, to be able to be the shepherd over people's souls. I honor the time that the Lord allowed me to do it. The people that sat underneath me are still so precious to me. It was a very challenging decision because I had never ever seen this done before, but I do understand the timing of God. And where I am now, there is no way I could be doing what I'm doing now as a part of my destiny had I held on to that particular season. We always declare that the Lord is doing a new season. We declare that the Lord is doing a new season, and we say it, but we have our arms still wrapped around old. We still have our arms wrapped around what is familiar and what is comfortable. I will not say it was not painful. It was. That's why I wrote the book, Mastering Transition. It was
Mm,
painful. It was challenging. It was hard. It was difficult. God had to really process me. And so I would say to you, if you're there, reach out to me as well. But please know that there is a life on the other side of pastoring.
yeah, that's so good.
And it's a good
Kimberly
life.
Fraser, yes, Kimberly Fraser asked the question, what if the pastor does not do a transition for the congregation and the board? So, Ms. Fraser, I have to say that this is more common than not, which is why we're having this discussion today, which is why I do the work that I do as the church attorney. A lot of times churches don't have a written succession plan. It is very key though. So if it doesn't exist, you are here, you are aware. And I would just really encourage, I don't know if you're on the board, what your role is with your church, but share this with them. There's also excellent podcast episodes that I've done on succession planning. So if someone from my team wants to just drop the link of the Church Law podcast, or the YouTube channel, so that if you're watching from YouTube, you can follow there, because it is necessary to create. And it doesn't have to, as Dr. Fleming said, it doesn't have to be chaos. As a matter of fact, it shouldn't be. The whole goal is to be able to create a plan
Right.
in advance so that everybody knows what the plan is, right? What I had a very interesting experience. And again, I've been in the church my entire life and serving churches for decades. But this is a situation where someone made the choice to leave a church because there was not clarity on the succession plan. And I was quite surprised that that was a response. They didn't feel secure, because there wasn't a plan, in from their evaluation, it looks like the time was there to need one. And so I think a lot of churches would want to know how much the people in the pews, the people that they're leading, they're also cheering for you. They want to see you do well. They want to see you move forward, and want to see you successful. So if the pastor does not have a written plan, um, then I would really encourage them to access these resources. And Dr. Flemings, we're going to include your information there as well, the book that you referenced, so that they can come up with a plan. That's the simple thing. I'm happy to be a resource as well, but we have a lot of free resources out there. And also, hi, George Jackson. He says, hello, church family. Hi there. So we're really excited that you would be a catalyst, hopefully, for your church. Those of you who are here, share this with your church, share this with your leadership, because sometimes they're not sure about the next space. They're not really sure about how we do this. And so you can be helping provide this opportunity. Dr. Flemings, any final words? I know this time goes by so fast. Any final words that you would want to share as we, share this important concept that you're still called, you're still faithful, even when you're shifting, and shifting is not failure, right? So any final words?
Yes, I would just say to the pastors, because I know what it feels like when you're a pastor, when you're having these silent conversations with yourselves and you're just really trying to figure out what is the next call, what is the next step, what is the next move, and not having that inner circle around you to really support you in the way that is needed and necessary. I would say, really trust the Father. He knows what He has designed you to do in the earth, and really understand that serving as that pastor of that congregation is noble, is honorable, but it's so much more to your life. There's so much more to add to it. Have the conversations, be able to have the conversations, and please know that because you're pivoting or making a transition, it doesn't mean that you have failed. It just means that you have turned the page of a chapter in the book. It is not failure by a long shot. And I had to walk through that my own self, because people really make you feel like you have failed, like, oh, you're not pastoring anymore, like there's something wrong, like you have a scarlet letter or something on your head. And especially being a woman, so that came with all type of controversy. But I had to really rest in the Lord and allow Him to heal me from other people's opinions and other people's thought about why I was created. At the end of the day, go back to the maker. Go back to the person who made you, lean into that and trust Him, and know that, yes, shifting, transitioning, it is a part of creating actually legacy for the organization. But
Yeah.
it is, but it is by no means failing at all.
I love that so much. You've said so many good things here. And I just want to echo the sentiment that I heard someone say that other people's thoughts about me are not my business, right? Other
Exactly.
people's thoughts about me are not my business, but it is my business. It is my desire to honor God's call on my life and to be where He wants me to be when I am to be there, right? So we don't want to outstay our welcome in any given place.
Right.
And I love your suggestion too, that sometimes when we are in a place over time, right, when we've outstayed the time that God plans for us to be there, we're really blocking somebody else's legacy move. And so I want us to really examine our hearts, that we're not in a place of ego, that we're really in a place of honoring God. And so, Dr. Flemings, thank you so much for the time. What a timely, anointed, and I also think practical conversation. So we appreciate you being with us, and I'm going to leave all of her information below. We appreciate you, Dr. Flemings, for your wisdom. And listen, I am excited for this conversation. Let's keep the conversation going. If you want to share anything in the comments, and also hopefully you get to watch this on the YouTube channel, on the Church Attorney YouTube channel. We can keep the conversation going there. This has been the Church Law Podcast. I appreciate you all. We're going to drop some information for you below. We'd love to stay in touch, and we pray that you will continue to take the next call, the next move that God's called for you, because there's a blessing there. All right. God bless. Bye.
Bye.